Hi, welcome to Stem Cell University. This is Katana.
And I am Patty. Our Stem Cell University channel is here for educational purposes only. We do not intend to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or medical condition. Always consult with a physician or other qualified healthcare providers before embarking on a new treatment, product to use, diet, or fitness plan. Welcome, Dr. Stan. We're so pleased to have you here with us today.
It's great to be here.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome, Dr. Stan.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Excited about whatever we're going to share today. We've got a lot of good things we can share.
Yes, we do. We have amazing testimonies with you. We'd like to talk about how your experience is with your clients with this technology and your results. And tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my background is, I guess, started out my early life. I call it an earlier life, one of my past lives, so to speak. I was a pastor, minister. It went off to school to study for the ministry. Got into child care services with a Christian organization. And while I was there, I was able to work on my advanced degrees, which is really it was just a perfect time for me to be able to study and get advanced degrees, while I was still working there and using that same information, in the Christian children's home that we were working in. And it was about that time a friend of mine was teaching me how to work out with weights, and I lost a little bit of weight because I had struggled with weight over the years. I'm one of those yo-yo dieters. I used to gain weight, lose weight, gain it, lose it. And right about that time, he got me working out correctly with weights, and I was riding my bicycle, and I lost some weight doing all of that. So that was kind of when I first got interested in health and wellness. And then we started pastoring churches, and while you're pastoring churches, you're dealing with sickness, disease, death, tragedy. It's there all the time. And the bigger the church, the bigger the time you have to spend in hospitals, nursing homes, and all those situations. Well, Jody and I, my wife, we were typical Americans. We ate this typical, what I call the sad American diet, and we basically both had some health challenges. Jody had had IBS all of her life. She had very painful menstrual cycles. She'd get the cyst in her lymphatic system during the menstrual cycle. She would get very ill. I used to call the Wicked Witch of the West, used to ride in on her broom during that time of the month. Mm-hmm. And I was the type of person, not only did I struggle with weight, but I used to, every time a cold came around or a flu bug came around or a stomach bug came around, I would get it. I had spring allergies, fall allergies. I used to get tonsillitis once a year. I used to get bronchitis once a year. It was just like clockwork. It's like I knew during those cycles. In fact, I used to have 5-year prescriptions to antihistamines and things like that. Which is not a good thing to be taking those all the time. But long story short, while we were in the ministry at that time, a next door neighbor of ours was a Seventh-day Adventist and introduced us to, a gentleman called George Mountainous of Hallelujah Acres. And we went to a workshop there. And of course, the name of the workshop, you don't have to be sick. Why do Christians get sick? And so we basically started our journey eating more healthy, a more, I guess what you would say, a biblically based diet, at the time. And we started studying under, some wonderful people who had overcome sickness, cancer, disease. George had overcame cancer, went to Florida and overcame it through natural means, through one of the sanitariums down there. And we began to be mentored and taught by all these wonderful doctors, naturopathic doctors and people. You don't have to be sick. And if you are, you can reverse sickness and disease through lifestyle, which is really cool. So we started doing that, and I lost a bunch of weight, got in real good shape. All of our health problems disappeared in like 6 or 8 weeks.
Wow.
We were really doing, very well. We were in our 30s at the time. I'm 65 now. And so we did real good for years. And then we kind of started experimenting because the diet I was using was kind of had an expiration date on it for a lot of people, because we were talking about this earlier. People are a little bit different, and sometimes, people have different needs, and we need to understand that, and that one size doesn't always fit all. So I began to start learning that, and I began to experiment with different diets and different things. And I went back to school and got, certified in health and nutrition, herbs, all kinds of things, because that was what I was interested in. So it was just natural to go back to school and want to learn more.
Yep.
And I probably learned more from my mentors from going to school, so to speak. But, long story short, we, a few years back, we had moved to the beach. We had semi-retired, moved to the beach. And of course, when we moved to, here, we just had recently moved back. So there's 2 chapters to our beach, the first one and now the second one. But while we were here, we were working our business. I was still doing, I had an office down here. We were busy, but people were coming. We were going out to eat all the time. It was just like business partners, family, friends, everybody comes and sees you at the beach, and what do they want to do? You got to go out, you got to go eat, you got to take them to Margaritaville, whatever it is, to show them the town. And so I gained some weight and knew what to do, hired me a personal trainer, and Marcia Prince, who was Miss Universe Bikini in 2007, a jewel of a lady.
Wow.
And because I needed to be accountable, and long story short, we had, pretty much got everything under control, lost my weight, all my numbers metabolic numbers were going up. And so I knew what to do. So I got it under control, except for my blood pressure had ticked up, and I've been monitoring it and keeping it under best control I could through natural means, because I didn't want to do drugs, my personal choice.
Statin.
And so I knew that was kind of the thing over my head. And then it was a little over a year ago, a friend of ours, Alicia Waters, she had, when we were in a previous project together, she had gotten cancer. And we'll shorten the story, but we had found out she had started using this new LifeWave technology, which kind of, she said she had gotten the best report from her doctor than she had in like 4 years.
Wow.
And my wife, Jody, had some issues with some carpal tunnel arthritis in her hands. And she wasn't sleeping very good at night. And anyway, she said, "You think it would help me?" But we'd had people approach us before with it. But, you know how timing is. The timing wasn't right. I looked at it, but I'm like, I don't think so. I've been studying longevity, stem cells, telomeres, the blue zone studies, and trying to help people through the tried and proven methods of lifestyle and through certain supplementation, because, there are good supplements for longevity. So anyway, when we started doing the patches, she did it for a few days, thought she got some results. So we thought, well, let's just give it a shot. So we ordered a bunch of the patches, and at the time there was a special going on, a pre-release of the X49. So we got this package with X39, 49, Eon, and some different things, which kind of got us started into LifeWave, so that's kind of a little bit of my background. Do you want me to go ahead and get into the results and what's happened?
Yes, please. Because
Okay.
you look like you're 45.
Yeah.
Excuse me. No, you're not 65. Number one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's the power.
Yeah,
It's the power of lifestyle and the power of the patch. I mean, if you saw my picture I posted yesterday.
We will share it here if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. It's pretty amazing because, after we left a previous project, I don't mention any names, doesn't matter, we walked away from a 6+ figure income.
Right.
And so it was a 3 years of, it's very stressful when you walk away from 6 figures and you don't have it anymore. Kind of creates a little bit of financial stress and challenges. And so that probably had a lot to do too with my blood pressure staying up because, stress and stuff like that doesn't help. So we were surviving it and overcoming it. I'm not a whiny baby or anything like that. Life happens and you have to deal with it.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean while you're dealing with it, you don't have some bumps in the road or challenges in your life. Anybody says you're never going to have a challenge, you watch out. They're getting ready to have a big one in their life, So, and it's okay to have a bump in the road. It's just a matter of what you do with the bump.
Yeah.
Do you use it to clarify? I like to use the word clarify. Well, here we are. Where we are is where we are. But where we are can be that bouncing off place for something else. Because once you know what's not working, you can't do the same thing over and over and over and get the same results.
New doors open.
Yeah. So anyway, when we had got introduced to the patch, we started using it, and within 3 weeks, we saw some really great results. Wow. First week I used it, I could tell something was going on in my body. I mean, we've been in health and nutrition a long time, used a lot of nutritional products. And it was very interesting because when we first started taking super green foods and eating healthy, you're going to go through a detox a lot of times, or your body's going to be evacuating the bad while it's rebuilding. And that can cause some detox, negative side effects of getting the junk out of your body. Well, I didn't get into a heavy detox, but I knew something was going on in my body. I could feel it. I mean, when I put those patches on, I could feel something going on in my body, which we know the technology. So anyway, during that period, first thing I noticed was, me and my wife both, is we had more energy during the day. Like, wow, I'm really feeling more energy. Yeah, because anybody after lunch, you eat lunch, has a tendency to have that little, you're digesting your food.
Take a nap.
It's time to take a nap. And all of a sudden, one afternoon, I was like, man, I've got energy. My mind's clear. I just felt better, and it wasn't that I ever felt bad, but, you can go from good to better. That's a good thing. And a lot of people miss out on life because they have a good life, but they could have a better life. There's a freebie.
Yeah.
And so, what was interesting, we started sleeping better. And I used to snore some, and Jody said, man, you're not snoring quite as much as you were. And that's a good thing. She's sleeping better because I ain't snoring. Well, she used to wear these mittens, copper mittens, for her hands, at night. Yep. And of course, when you're sleeping in bed and you reach over and somebody's got a mitt on, that's it's kind of like, ooh, what's that? Creepy. So anyway, after about 3 weeks, she didn't have to have her mitts. I call them her mitts, her copper gloves, on at night. So that improved the night sleep. We were sleeping better. I'm not snoring. She's not wearing her mitts. That's a great thing. I mean, it might not sound like a whole lot of people, but sleep is very important. And we both were sleeping better through the night. Because I was always a person that would usually wake up around 3 or so in the morning and go back to sleep, and then usually wake up one more time before I got up, and sometimes more. But we were sleeping better, And then all of a sudden I noticed my pants were getting looser. And I got on the scales, and I wasn't losing any weight, but my pants were looser. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool, because I work out every day of my life, and combination of a lot of different things, rebounding weights and resistant bands. I'm a TB12 fan. I believe what Tom Brady's doing is awesome. So I've adopted a lot of his stuff in the last couple of years, and really love the
resistance
protocol, the system that he has. But, then all of a sudden, we were sleeping better. We were having more energy. And then after about 3 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, Jody's hands were like 80 to 90% better. And and to complete her testimony, she had all of her life had a little bit of heart arrhythmia types where it skipped, and doctors really weren't concerned about it, didn't show any kind of defects, but it dawned on her, that stopped. All of a sudden now she doesn't have that heart palpitations and arrhythmia like she used to have, which was pretty cool. And then Jody was looking at me one night, and she looked at me and said, "Are you dyeing your hair?" And I went, "No." And she said, "Boy, it's getting darker." And so my hair started getting darker, but I guess the biggie also for me was I went to get my blood work done. I'll save the best for last, but I went to my doctor, got the blood work done. And when I got the blood profile back, my blood work was perfect. I'd actually increased my testosterone levels by 200 points, which is pretty huge, as far as that
That is
goes.
huge.
And I do, and I'll say it, just for the benefit of men or women, when you get your hormones back into shape, you're going to feel better all the way around. And of course, your libido increases, your desire for sexual activity increases.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing because I firmly believe that sexual energy is the reproductive energy of the universe. Exactly. And that spray you got in there, I've got a video teaching on those two products. I break down every ingredient in it, but it is a libido booster, testosterone booster. And I've noticed since I've used it, it has boosted sexual activity in our life, so I think it's a good thing to share. It's a lot of men, they get to be 40, 50, 60 years old and they have no sexual desire. Well, I'm sorry, when you're have no sexual desire, it's almost like, especially for men, that's very important, probably more important than women in a lot of respects, because their manhood has always been around testosterone and stuff like that. So that's a nice benefit of doing stem cell activation and doing things like this new homeopathic, well, it's not homeopathic, but our essential oil spray, which will enhance energy and libido and things like that. So the blood work came back. It was perfect. Doctor was real happy. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And the biggie was I dropped my blood pressure 30 points.
How did you do that?
Only thing I changed was patching. Wow. I mean, I've had a good diet. I eat a very clean
pasta.
Very little. I mean, when we eat pasta, it's whole grain pasta. Pastas are different. You've got refined processed pasta, and then you have whole grain pasta. And there's a big difference between the two. Flourless pasta is different from that. It's like Ezekiel bread is different from, white bread.
Have you tried the quinoa pasta at all?
Yeah, we've tried them all. Yeah. And some of them are better than others. We've used some that are rice-based that are decent, quinoa-based. Of course, we do whole grain, whole wheat. Wheat does not. Wheat's gotten a lot of bad rap because of gluten. That's another little trail we could go down. But gluten is naturally occurring in any kind of food. To me, what happens with most people when they say they're gluten sensitive, what they really are is refined carbohydrate sensitive. So obviously when they cut out refined carbohydrates like white bread, white pasta and all that, all those symptoms go away. But I find that a lot of people that say they are there is such thing as celiac. I'm not talking about a true diagnosis. There's so many people out there, are doing gluten-free because, I'm like, well, yeah, when you're doing gluten-free, you're not eating all this junk food, which is a good thing because that's what they're eliminating from their diet. But what I find is if they add in Ezekiel bread, flours, they have no issue with the gluten that is in the bread. So which is, to me, is an interesting thing for people because, again, it comes back to we have so many crazes out there, the gluten-free, low carb. I've been watching this for 40 years, and the diets get reinvented. Low carb gets reinvented now about every 3 months. A new book comes out. Somebody comes out with a new set of supplements and trying to sell you on, the new this or new that, as far as that goes. But I guess the exciting thing for me was what was so exciting for us was that we take care of ourselves. So, it doesn't mean we're perfect. We have our nights where we'll have a cheat night every once in a while and eat something we don't normally do. But normally that for us is not like what we never eat refined processed foods, refined sugar. Those are no-nos. I don't ever eat those things, period. But there are other little things we do, eating maybe some fake, cheese or fake proteins, every once in a while. It's kind of like the longevity studies. Everything that's been done, the China study indicates that if you're eating healthy with 90% of your diet, 10% is not going to have any negative effect on you. That's basically the bottom line. It's actually 91%. So it's 11%. I always just tell people use the 10% rule. Whatever you do as far as cheating, keep it to 10%, and you'll do fine.
Yeah.
What you do 90% of the time is not going to be negated by what you do 10% of the time. If that makes sense, So, and the studies bear that out. The China study did it with over 5,000 people, and just as soon as people started eating refined foods and meats and dairies and all that above the 10%, that's when disease started activating in the body.
Wow.
So it's not a matter of if that's true. It is true. It's the studies. All of this can be documented as far as that goes. So that's the only thing I changed, Patty, was the patching. The patching changed it, and I firmly believe it was because of the X3949 and the EON, because we know X49 is good for the cardiovascular system. X39, of course, is the base patch for all stem cell activity. So I was rebuilding my cardiovascular system, and I firmly believe mine had more to do with heart than cardio. But either way, whatever it was, it started to, number one, take the inflammation out of the body and starting to repair and rebuild the cardiovascular system, that I guess I damaged, during about, 5 or 6 years of living at the beach and not, and I didn't do the 90% rule back then. Let's put it that way. It was more like 60%, so the 40% caught up with me pretty quick, but I adjusted to it. So the patches, I give it all credit to the patches.
Yeah.
Because that was the magic, and I hate to use that word because over the years I tell people there's no such thing as a magic bullet. There's not a magic herb. And the tendency for practitioners, herbalists, and alternative people is to, instead of prescribe, diagnose, and treat with drugs, they do it with herbs.
Yeah.
And I'm always been the type, I'm not against herbs. I'm not against medicine. If you need emergency life-saving medication, take it. But while you're doing it, start working like with me, I'm like, no, I don't want any of that stuff, but I got it. Then you better fix it quick.
Right.
Or use the drugs until you can get your act together and stuff. And then, I don't want people to think, if they're on medication, that they're somehow evil or bad. It could save your life, but it's not the solution. It's just a Band-Aid. It's when you have a health problem. I didn't have a high blood pressure medicine deficiency. My deficiency was in my health itself, which is so important to understand in the technology. So with the patches, you're allowing your body to heal itself. That's the magic of it. And so when you work with your body, give it the proper fuel, the proper exercise, fresh air, sunshine, drink your water, and you're taking care of yourself. Now we've got a technology that can assist the body, as we know, to activate those stem cells to start performing again. Because like with me, here I am at 65, and I'll turn 65 in March, but I'm more 65 than I am 64. But, when I was in my 30s, I was falling apart. I was gaining weight. I had all the traditional health challenges of our society. And if we'd have kept going down that road, I would have been probably had a heart attack or stroke or had cancer because, our lifestyle was atrocious.
Yeah.
I didn't do the things I knew that I needed to be doing. And I was in a church where we prayed for people got healed. We were all into all of that, but a lot of times, God can heal you. You can align with energy, but you still have to come in harmony with Mother Nature, God and the universe and everything else if you want to stay healthy, because, It's just the way it works. You got to put it all together, spirit, mind, body, which is how we ended up in doing what we did, was helping people connect the dots spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I like to say we're taking ancient practices that have tried and proven, to make you a holistic, complete person with modern technology.
Yeah.
And that's what the LifeWave patches are doing. Now we have a non-invasive, safe, affordable way to activate stem cells in the body safely, because the industry, it's wild. I mean, when you Google stem cells, it's the craze. Everybody, all the medical profession knows this is where it's at, but they still haven't perfected it. It's still hit and miss. People spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for an injection that may or may not work. Many times it doesn't work, and then sometimes you have a negative effect rather than the positive effect. So stem cell, is where it's at. It is the future. I'm sure science and medicine will come up with something eventually, but it will be expensive.
Yeah.
And it will not be for the masses. Whereas with LifeWave, we've got something for everybody, the masses of people, I always tell people, just wear the X39 and the Eon for the rest of your life, and you're going to add years to your life and life to your years.
Do you use the glutathione?
Yes. I mean, if you look at me now, I got about 5 or 6 patches on, but yeah, glutathione is very important to me. We've seen, obviously, when you boost your glutathione levels 300% in 24 hours with the patch, that's crazy. I mean, because even taking supplements, even IVs, are short-lived. They stay in your system, maybe 3 hours or something like that, and then it's gone. Whereas when you're boosting it naturally, your body's producing it. It's not artificially being inseminated in you, so to speak. It's actually being produced by your own body. The master acts, and what makes this the master antioxidant, yes, it's the most powerful antioxidant because it encourages other antioxidant activity in the body. So not just glutathione production, but all your other immune factors are starting to raise up when glutathione levels are up. So like when people are sick, when people are suffering from colds, flus, something like a corona, the viruses that are going around, you're boosting your body's natural immunity system, which was the idea behind the shot, it's not a vaccine. It's supposedly an immune booster, not very effective with a lot of negative side effects. We won't go down that road. But glutathione is natural. That's why we've had people with long COVID get on glutathione, Eon, X39, and within 6 weeks, they're starting to feel better and overcome it. So glutathione, it's very important to me. I always tell people, start with X39, Eon. If you've got some type of bug issue, sickness, cancer, I would by all means you take glutathione. I'm going to wear it every day because I want to keep my antioxidant levels as high as I can so I can fight off anything that might be out there circulating around. But you'll find, though, with glutathione, it's kind of like we ran into COVID. We've experienced the COVID thing at least twice and overcome it, naturally. We got the Delta variant, but we weren't on the patch, didn't have the patches. I wish we did. Then we got it this past year, and we just started triple patching with glutathione, and, was over it fairly quick. But, glutathione to me is very important for fighting sickness and disease.
I use copper. Do you use copper, Katana?
Yeah, I take a copper supplement. I mean, I take, one little tablet a day to boost. I mean, copper has been shown to be a deficiency in the American diet. It's kind of like B complex, B12. Even in meat eaters, there's a lot of deficiency of B vitamins. So there's there are certain things I do recommend to supplement with, but copper obviously is important. That will help darken your hair naturally. Copper deficiencies are linked to gray hair. So when you're taking a copper supplement, plus when you're the X39 we know is a copper peptide. That's why hair starts to darken. Because when you increase copper, gray hair starts going white. So that's what
How much
happens.
are you taking of copper? Because I take 2 milligrams, but I heard some people take 10 milligrams. I mean,
I would recommend it. I take I forget now what it is, but I just take one a day. I don't think
what's the
your
milligrams on it?
I mean, I don't think if you wanted to take a little extra when you first start out to kind of get your body built back up, but you need to get yourself to a point where you're not doing therapeutic dosages of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people do a lot of times is I need to have copper, so they do the copper, but then they overdo it. And then, it's kind of like water. Water's good for you. Too much water, you drown. Sun's good for you. Too much, you burn.
Yeah.
So you have to use common sense with supplementation. So I find that a little bit will go. That was my biggest problem for years. I used to think more is better when most of the time it's not. But there are times when you need to have therapeutic levels. If you're overcoming sickness, disease, cancer, you have deficiencies, then by all means, do massive therapeutic dosages. That's a good thing to do. But again, it's like vitamin C. You don't need to do massive dosages of vitamin C. And there's so much controversy in there, too, because they think you can take ascorbic acid. It's not the same as squeezing a lemon and drinking the lemon juice. So every morning I do at least one raw lemon and, apple cider vinegar and warm water. And that's a very healthy way.
I love that.
Yeah. That's why I start my day.
I love that.
Hydrate with water, I usually put green tea. I'll usually put some, what else do I put in there? I'll put apple cider vinegar, raw apple cider vinegar, a whole lemon, that and ginger. Well, you drink that in warm water in the morning. I usually drink 1 or 2 glasses of water, then follow that with that. Man, your liver, your digestive system, your cardiovascular system just opens up. And that's why I don't like to eat in the morning, because once I eat, I lose that high energy I have in the morning.
Well, because your body's using energy to break down the food.
It's exactly right. And then it's usually something heavy fat, sugary, or processed, like a processed bagel, or that'll go through your system fast.
Do you eat eggs?
Occasionally. I eat a little bit of protein. We used to be 100% vegan. And after I read all the research, we try to do fish once or twice a week and eggs maybe once a week, something like that.
Are you familiar with Michael Greger?
Yes, yeah, I'm a big fan of Dr. Michael Greger. Yeah, I think, but the research, I mean, you can get all your protein from any other sources, but that's just us. We use when we do fish, it's wild caught. When I do eggs, it's pasture raised. And there's a lot of difference in eggs. You got organic eggs and free range eggs are not the same as pasture raised. Free range means they might have had a 12 by 12 place they could have gone out and got a little breath of fresh air and gone back in. Pasture raised, if anything, means it's in the pasture and they're not fed any types of grains. They just eat worms. And they're a whole lot different. So again, to me, it's the nutritarian. That's why, Dr. Joel Furman and Dr. Campbell, T. Colin Campbell, the studies show that as long as you don't go above 10% of your diet in these foods, they're not going to do any harm, and they can have some value. So that's where I'm at with it now. I've kind of changed on that because I used to be 100% pretty radical with the veganism. But then when I read the research, these people that are living to be 100 and beyond, eat just a little bit of fish or eggs or something like that. Just a little bit. So that's what I do, just a little bit.
Yeah. Everything comes with cheese these days.
Now, I do not eat cheese, period. That's just concentrated fat and hormones, And people say, well, there ain't no hormones in my food. It says on the label. I said, well, did the chicken have hormones? Well, yeah. I said, well, you don't think it's in the food? I mean, it's just like people that are all anti-GMO. I said, well, do you eat meat? Yeah. I said, well, you do realize 90% of the soy GMO soy and corns are fed to animals. So you're eating GMO animals all the time. People don't think about these things, you know.
No.
Well, pardon me. They're not into understanding exactly how the animal's fed, how the animal's taken care of, what shots. I'm here on a farm, and Chris, he has to give certain shots to his animals to make it through the winters and stuff like that. But they're all grass fed, but there's still things in that meat that is processed. And then when he sells a cow to the market, then that cow goes off and eats something totally different from what we're feeding it.
Oh, absolutely. And I used to work on a farm with cattle too, and you grass feed them. And of course, they did some corn silage, but the last month of their life, they take them up to the barn and just feed them corn and trap them in the stall to help them to gain a bunch of fat and weight, because your high grade meat, the more marble, which means the more fat, is the higher grade meat, because it tastes better because it's got more fat in it. And it's crazy the way that industry works. But no, I don't eat any type of red meat. I don't eat chicken. Don't do dairy or anything. Like I said, I'll do maybe a pasture raised egg once a week, if that. And maybe we'll do fish, wild caught fish once in a while. But other than that, that's it for us. And of course, people go vegan for different reasons. You can do it for health. You can do it because you're an animal activist. I did it for kind of religious reasons, and I can go through and show you in the Bible that if you're going to read the Bible, and you even read the ancient writers of different religions, they are not meat eaters, don't advocate it. And if you go back even into the Old Testament prophets, the lion's going to lay with the lamb, the lamb's, the child's going to play with the cobra, and the tiger will eat grass. So there's an indication, and, if you want to go that route, and that's where I was kind of at for a long time. It's like, well, let's get back as close to the Garden of Eden as we can, but we're not there yet.
Well, what I was going to say is there's a problem too, because they're doing testing on shrimp, right? So they're noticing that there's plastics in the shrimp.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing. The oceans. Have you seen Seaconspiracy? It's on Netflix. You can if you look at that, and what they're doing to our oceans right now is they've been. And we're going to end up. People don't realize if the oceans go, we go. And the way they're farming fish.
That's why I like David Schmidt.
Yeah.
That's why I like David Schmidt, because that's one of his missions, is working on the oceans to change all of that and bring that plant food. I can't wait until he totally releases it. But the platform that floats on the ocean.
Yeah, you don't create manna from heaven, so it's really exciting what our founder vision is, because, he's wanting to feed the world with something better than white rice, something that's more nutritious and better. One of these days, I hope we have a technology we can offer to people to restructure the water and make, I do it now. I use water purification, but I have a vortex water machine where I actually spin and restructure the water magnetically and structurally, which is a good thing. So our company's poised. Of course, you were picking up our sprays. That's used with structured water, to help it to be more efficacious, more able to work better. So water is important. I always tell people, first most important nutrient we put in our body every day is air. Second is water. So you better get fresh air, sunshine, drink lots of water, because that's what we're mostly made up of, is water, not protein, not anything else. We're mostly made up of water.
Interesting. Do you connect with other doctors with this information?
Yes. We work with a medical doctor in North Carolina who is a general She works with a lot of people, and she's a general practitioner slash, and she works with patients that are going through workers' comp claims and pain management and along those lines. And we work a lot with her right now because she basically treats them in the office, does what she needs to do medically in the office. And then she says, hey, you ought to, if you got some pain, you need to try this LifeWave, the Eon. Let me have one of our associates get in contact with you. And so then Jody and I reach out and we help, medical doctors. But yes, I mean, medical doctors are doing this, chiropractors are doing this, alternative practitioners are doing this. It's a no-brainer for most of these practices if you can get in front of them and explain to them, because most of them understand stem cells, or else if they hadn't studied stem cells and longevity, then probably you're not going to get able to talk to them because they don't see the value of those things. But most anybody that we talk to medically and any of the alternative health cares, they're very aware of what stem cell production is and why it's important, why we need to preserve those telomeres on our cells. And when you start explaining it to them, then it becomes almost like, why wouldn't you offer this to your clients? If you have a safe, affordable way to produce stem cell activity in the body, a safe, affordable way to take inflammation out of the body, boost your immune system, why wouldn't you want to offer that to your clients, your customers, your friends, your family, your loved ones? Because you're going to age, but how you age is up to you. That's always up to you.
Exactly.
That's why, we go to a high school reunion. We went to 2 of them this past fall. When we go, we're usually the best shape. There's a few, not the only ones, because there's other people who do take care of us. But we're usually the most useful. We're on the dance floor. We're dancing. We dance the whole night, and I can still dance with the best of them. I used to be a discotheque master. I actually won a discotheque contest when I was in college. So we like to shake it and get down, and come back up, and people walking up to us, how are you still doing that? How are you getting down?
Because I'm 40.
Because my biological age isn't the same as yours. And so that's the thing, is when people who smoke and drink are going to age faster than people that don't. People who smoke age faster than people that don't smoke, even if they don't drink. Smoking is probably one of the worst aging things you can do. It will destroy not only your internal organs, your lungs, and create cardiovascular disease, but you are causing your body to age and wrinkle. Smoking creates wrinkling. It just ages you. Combine it with alcohol, then you got a double whammy, smoking and drinking at the same time. Terrible thing for people to do. So if you smoke, quit, please. It's like wine, it's just like longevity studies. 1 or 2 glasses of wine a day is okay. Women should normally stick to 1, men no more than 2. But that's a good general rule of thumb. And it's, in the blue zones, they call it wine and fine, but they're not getting drunk. They're not over drinking. They're not drinking the whole bottle at night. They socially get together, have a glass of wine, and that's it. And it's good for you. I saw on news yesterday, the supposedly oldest living woman in the world was like 112, just passed. And she pretty much followed the blue zone diet, but she had 1 glass of wine a day.
My grandfather too.
I
come
seen
from
one.
Portugal. Sorry, go ahead.
I seen a nun yesterday, 118 years old, and she'd have a glass of wine and some dark chocolate.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's dark chocolate's great, for you, as long as it isn't loaded up with junk, So, if you can get raw cacao and types, and there are some chocolates out there that are made more healthy than others. I buy the hypoallergenic dark chocolate, freeze it, and then when I need a little sweet tooth, I can just put one in a little bowl and just kind of munch on them. And I get the benefits of dark chocolate without all the refined sugars and milk products and all the other allergenic things. They call it chocolate for allergenic purposes. People that are allergic to milk, soy, and most of them will have cane sugar rather than sugar. Big difference between the two. Sugar gets a bad rap. Everybody says you need to cut out your carbs. I'll say, no, you don't. You need to cut out the bad carbs. Because if you're eating blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, red cabbage, sweet potatoes, and regular potatoes, finer, you're eating foods that are complex, the way God made them, the way nature. Eat your food the way Mother Nature served it to you. And you're not going to go wrong. Exactly. It's when it becomes manufactured. That's where the problem is, which is why we tell people, shop the perimeter of the grocery store, stay out of the middle as much as you can. Yeah. Eat fresh produce. The next best is frozen without any added stuff to it. And the wild thing, wild blueberries, any kind of blueberries, if you freeze them, they become more powerful.
Really?
Oh, is that true?
It's true that the antioxidant levels, they protect themselves when they're froze. So the antioxidant, it's just like before you eat broccoli, cauliflower, any type of cruciferous vegetables, onions, garlic, if you grate them, prepare them beforehand. I like to make like slaw type material. If you do it, or at least chop it up real well, let it sit for an hour.
What?
45 minutes to an hour, the antioxidant levels in the foods increase because it's fighting oxidation.
So what is it that you're chopping up again?
Any type of cruciferous vegetables, onions, garlic.
Oh, onions and garlic.
Cabbage, all that stuff. Then it opens up everything, and then it's like the apple, when you cut it, starts to oxidize. Well, same thing happens with broccoli. You just don't see the oxidation, but when it starts to create the oxidation, then the antioxidant levels raise up in that plant to overcome the oxidation. So now you're eating a more powerful, high antioxidant food by either chopping it real well or making slaw. That's one of my favorite things to do for lunch is I'll do a whole grain pita pocket, and I'll call it red cabbage, broccoli, sometimes cauliflower, might put some onion, garlic, grate it up, let it sit for about 45 minutes, and then put it in there with some like hummus or something like that. Oh man, you talk about high energy food.
Wow. See, that's beautiful. And that's why you look amazing. You really do.
Well, the way you take care of yourself has everything to do with it, and all my mentors, I always tell people, if you want to know how to live to be 100 and beyond, or live healthy on into your 80s and 90s, you got to listen to people who have done it. You can't listen to people, doctors don't know how to do it for the most part. Most people don't know how to do it, and the sad part about it, some people don't really care, and they
don't want to take the time.
Yeah, and it's harder. I mean, when people have been, it's like I've talked to a lot of people over the years with health and nutrition, especially with Christians. I used to kid around talking to Christian people, especially about diet, just freaks them out. It's almost like, well, quit everything else. Now you're going to take my hamburger, my pizza from me, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm not taking anything from you.
You're not stripping anything.
I'm trying to add something to you, not take away. But, when you go to the church dinners, it's all fried foods, junk foods, pies and cakes and refined carbohydrates, and if they do have vegetables, they're overcooked and fat back.
So let me show you a pattern.
In the South, everything's cooked with fat back or grease.
How about this? Do you notice the pattern? Every single thing that's a commercial is on the table. Every commercial that they're showing, the cakes are great. That's what's going to be on the table because that's acceptable.
Yeah. And it's like when you go to, Christmas time and the holidays, we don't indulge in all that stuff. And when we go places, I just tell people, and I just tell my doctor, I can't eat that stuff. I said, If I go back to eating that stuff, it's going to, I immediately feel it. If I eat anything like cheese or refined foods, within 24 hours, I have a sore throat.
Wow.
And
It
so,
makes a huge difference.
huh? Yeah.
It
So
makes a huge difference because like this Christmas, me and Chris went to his sister's, and on the the platform there was all of your pies, your different pies, but they did do like soups and chili and some vegan food. So it was different because I keep telling them, you guys are stuck in that same program. You need to get out of that same program. So his sister is listening to me and going, what can I do to show her I'm not doing the same thing over and over? But they're still stuck in that. They've got to have, like 50 different sweet things to assist. And everybody kept asking us, well, don't you want that? And then we're like, no.
No, because once you get off of it, I always just challenge people 6 weeks and get off of your Cokes, your Pepsis, your refined foods, your donuts, your bagels, and all this junk food, fried foods, quit eating fast food. And within 6 weeks, it doesn't, sometimes it's even sooner than that. Once you start changing your body over, it's like a salad. If you get used to eating I always tell people, if you don't do but one thing a day, eat a big salad,
Yep.
dark green leafy vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, all the good stuff, don't use a fatty dressing or a sugary dressing. Try to do more vinaigrettes or salsas and different things like that. At first, you don't really like it. I didn't like it when I first started eating broccoli, cauliflower, and all that. I didn't really like it. It's kind of like when people start smoking, they don't like smoking. They just do it because it's a social thing or it's just a thing. It's like most people don't like beer, but they acquire a taste for it. And so that's what happens when you get hooked on junk food. It's addictive. Junk food, refined foods are more addictive than alcohol. They just don't, it's the same type of addiction. And of course, the food industry purposely puts the flavor enhancers. They're the master chemicalists. They did it with tobacco, and now they do it with food. It's like people get addicted to the food colorings. Everything in there is addictive. And so you got to overcome an addiction. So I always tell people, give me 6 weeks, and if we need to just eliminate one, I'm the type of person, I'm just going to do it all at once. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I'll suffer through the detox or whatever I've got to do. Some people, it's just got to be little inch by inch. Well, can you quit drinking 2 liters? I literally had somebody drink 2 liters of Mountain Dew a day. I said, can you just do 1 this week? Okay. Then the next week we're just trying to wean them down as much as we can. And that same client always complained about not being able to sleep. Within 6 weeks of getting off of Mountain Dew, he was sleeping through the night like a baby. Because the caffeine, Mountain Dew has the most caffeine and sugar than most any, unless it's it has the most sugar and caffeine of any traditional soft drink out there.
I always tell people 4 grams of sugar equals 1 full teaspoon of sugar. 4 grams. Because you're looking at Mountain Dew and it's got like 27 grams, right, of sugar. So 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon of sugar. So
yeah, and you drink, all you got is 1 liter and your immune system is wiped out for the day. So then when you're eating all this sugar, the sugar compromises your immune system, and then you're more susceptible to colds and flus and viruses, cancer, and everything else. So very important. Of course, the artificial stuff isn't no better for you. Probably the most addictive soft drink on the market is Diet Coke. The formulation, I've had people try to come off of that. Between the aspartame and the chemicals, the phenolphthaleins, all that crap that's in there, the caramel, people don't realize caramel is it's classified as a carcinogenic substance. So when people are drinking soft drinks or any kind of foods, with those flavorings and caramels and things, you're eating carcinogenic foods. And the way they get away with it is it's kind of like preservatives. They know cause damage to your body, but the manufacturer can put this much in it because it takes this much to damage your health. So the FDA says, well, okay, as long as you're only putting a little bit in there, it's okay. But then what happens is when people are eating processed refined foods all day, they start out with sugar cereals, eating at the fast food places. All of a sudden, you've got that much preservatives in your system, which is a deadly dose. It compromises your immune system. It's kind of like nitrates. If you go to the heart, cancer, anywhere, they will tell you that anything like bacon and hot dogs and processed meats that have nitrates are directly connected to cancer. It's not, they will tell you that. And even the ones that say they are not have naturally occurring nitrates in them. So nitrates are bad for your health. I could get into a long story with the FDA and what happened there, but you can't, just because you drink this beverage once a day, it might not be a lethal dose in there, but if you're piling it up with other things, because we'll read the label. Sugar, refined salt, chemicals, preservatives are in just about everything everybody eats every day.
And I'll have to tell you, the blue zone that you're talking about, these blue zones, I also did research on that. It was on 2020, and they were talking about an island that is near Italy. It's off that circle there. Here's the blue. Yeah. There's one in there. And recently they just shipped Pepsi there.
Oh, no. Well, that's what happened in Japan. Japan had this healthy lifestyle, and then they let Americans come over there with their finger-licking foods and fast foods, and now their increase of cancer, heart attacks, strokes, cancers of all type, are increasing. And
but yeah, we don't see those reports.
Well, they won't tell you, but if you go to Okinawa, do the Okinawa studies where they don't have the fast foods, they drink their green tea, eat soy, because whole soy is good for you. It's anti-estrogen. It's refined soy that's bad for you. Soy protein isolates. Those are the things that are bad for you. Soy got a bad rap when actuality, Dr. Greger's studies bear this out. Soy is one of the most anti-cancer foods that you can put in your body as long as it's not a processed soy. It's like grain. If it's a whole food, organically grown. Yes, there's some arguments over GMO and this and that, but some of the hybrids aren't as bad as they say they are. Not all hybrids are bad for you, and that's another subject, So, but again, it's about the science. But these people in Okinawa are living long, healthy lives because I'm drinking green tea right now. I didn't like green tea, but once I found out it could fight cancer cells and add years to my life and life to my years, I got to where I liked it.
I'm gonna love it.
I figured, it's like, if I know eating wild blueberries every day is going to reduce my risk for cancer and heart attacks and strokes, then why wouldn't you want to eat it every day? I mean, these are just common sense things.
That's what I have. I make sure I have my blueberries. I have I'm really kind of addicted to blueberries.
It's a good thing to be addicted to.
Yeah. I like a cup or about 2 cups, and sometimes, people are looking at me like, why do you eat so much blueberries? But I did a little test study. I went on a vacation and in Wisconsin, and that's what I ate a lot of. And I came back and they was like, Katana, you look 10 years younger.
Wow.
Well, blueberries on the scale, if you study Dr. Joel Furman's, he has high nutrient foods, and then it goes down the scale. Wild blueberries are like up there with almost as high as the super green foods like kale, and anything that's a dark green leafy vegetable. Those are the most high nutrient foods on the earth. And it's not a matter of if. You can live on green foods and water the rest of your life if you wanted to. It would be boring, but you could do it. A cow can live off of eating grass and drinking water till it dies.
Yeah, really.
It would not be eating corn in its normal diet. That's just something they add to fatten them up, to make more money and make them juicier and more tasty, because the fattier, the more tasty. That's why ribeye will have more flavor than a lot of, a filet mignon, because you got more fat in it. So,
what kind of doctor did you start out as being? Did you start out as an MD or a health?
No, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD. When I was in the ministry, when I was working at the children's home, I started studying of course, I was a theologian, pastor, my undergraduate degrees. Then my master and PhD was in counseling, and started getting into because I was at the children's home, I was wanting to get into counseling, which really served me well, because even when I started pastoring, you do a lot of counseling after that. So my PhD is in nouthetic counseling. And then I started going back to school, like Dr. Christopher's School of Natural Healing, where I got certified in herbs and natural healing. I went to the Life Science Institute, and got certified in health and nutrition, exercise and all that stuff. Hallelujah Acres health minister. I mean, I just studied everywhere and started getting certifications, that. But, my biggest education was probably, I had the privilege of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Lorraine Day. She was a medical doctor in San Francisco. She wrote a book back in the 80s, Cancer Doesn't Scare Me Anymore, and has a cancer protocol. I got to study underneath her and be friends with her for a couple of years, which was very exciting. I worked with Dr. Robert Sorge, which was a naturopathic doctor out of Asbury Park, New Jersey, which was the only naturopathic doctor recognized in the United States as a certified naturopathic doctor to be able to practice naturopathic medicine in the state of New Jersey. Learned a lot from him. I got to correspond with Jack LaLanne, who was just a joy. I was privileged, and I don't know why, but God just allowed these people into my life to teach me, and I studied, because I was wanting to know how to help myself and others overcome sickness and disease and live a long and healthy life, which is why LifeWave just was the perfect fit for what we were already doing.
Well, that's what we do when we're in our mission to help others. We get help more, right?
Yeah.
Those doors open up so much more. And that's our mission here, is to really do the same, really bring out exposure.
Yeah. Well, you do. And, it's exciting. And again, it's a mixed up world we live in now. And it's sad when people don't want to listen and improve their health. And that's always the way it's going to be, but the right people
break through that.
But the good thing is the people who, it's like we always teach people, you just be the person you need to be, and the right people are going to show up that you can help. And I always tell people, you can't push on a string. My wife all the time wants to help, with certain people in our family. I said, they're not ready. If they're not going to listen and pay attention and willing to make the change, there's no use getting on your hobby horse and talking about what they need to do, or make these little comments that I was guilty of in the past and other healthy people do. A lot of times if you eat that, you're going to get cancer. If you do that, that's going to cause that. And to me, that's judgmental. And I'll give you a short little story here. We knew a lady who overcome cancer naturally. She went 100% raw, juiced, and got rid of her cancer. And we used to go to these potlucks, to the vegan dinners, because we were 100% vegan, going to all these vegan potlucks. And she used to always walk around judging people, even if it was, because, she was a vegan purist, okay? You want to be a purist? Amen, brother, sister, I'm happy for you. But don't try to push your purism on other people. So if somebody was eating something like Vegenates, oh, that Vegenaise is not good for you. That's going to cause this problem or that problem. I was like, well, Vegenaise is still better than regular mayonnaise. You know, you kind of weigh those things out. Or if somebody would have maybe a fake piece of meat there made out of soy, that stuff, you know, and I'm like, to me, it's better for someone to eat something plant-based than it is to eat something greasy and fried. And sometimes there's transitions, you know, for people when they're doing it. But the story is she's always judgmental, always judging. Well, then her cancer came back and she died.
Wow.
So everybody was at the meetings, you know, and I'm like, I'm so surprised. I'm like, I'm not surprised at all. She said, what do you mean? I said, health is about nutrition, but it's also about your mindsets. And if you're judgmental and always having this attitude, that is not conducive to good health.
Yep.
So, you know, I don't know if you studied Louise Hay or some people like that, you know, there is a mental connection to every sickness and disease. It's part of the equation. It's not the whole equation, but I can have people come to me and they can tell me what's going on in their body, and we can use the research of Louise Hay, which is not all her. She just gathered all the research. It's beautiful. You know, the Science of Mind book by Ernest Holmes is fabulous. Ernest Holmes was a pioneer in the New Thought, spirit, mind, body connection and things. Louise Hay took it, you know, and gathered it all together. And I can have people come in and just say, I've got this problem in my shoulder, this is going on. I say, well, do you have this going on in your life?
Mm.
And they go, yeah, how did you know that?
That's true.
I said, because this is how I overcame. I was in a car accident and had 2 major surgeries on my shoulder because it was totally ripped apart, so to speak, on my collarbone. And 2 surgeries later, and 2 years later, I was still in a lot of pain, discomfort. And one of the practitioners in my office was a big fan of Louise Hay and Ernest Holmes. So I started studying their literature and then started connecting the dots. My shoulder at the time, I was carrying a lot of burdens at the time, and some female issues were going on in my life, not my wife, but my wife always wants me to clarify that. And that's where the injury, everything showed up, was in that left shoulder.
Wow.
And the way I got over the pain was I had to start. I used to always tell the story of what happened in my accident. I was in this accident, blah, 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 blah. And I can feel it when the weather, blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
And I finally had to stop telling that story. And I stopped telling the story of what happened and started, you know, dealing with the emotional things in my life that I needed to deal with that were contributing to this. And for 2 years of really suffering with all this pain and stuff in my shoulder, 6 weeks, it was gone. It's because I got the mental energy right.
Mm-hmm.
And I dealt with some emotional issues that I needed to deal with. My wife was a little skeptic, and then 6 months later, she had a terrible urinary infection, kidney infection, was in bed, high fever, and she was finally open to connecting all this. And of course, fever infection has to do with anger and different things. And so she didn't have any, when she finally figured it out, what she was angry about was the fact that we had to pick up and leave the town we were living in to go live in the town where my parents were and take care of my mom when she was dying of cancer. And she was angry about that. She wasn't like mad at me over it, but it was like, and so she figured out there's some issues going on in her life that she needed to deal with, her anger issues. Anger causes inflammation in the body. And
Yes, it does.
within 24 hours of connecting the dots and starting to deal with it, you know, through affirmations, prayer, and all the things you need to do to deal with it, forgiving or whatever you need to do, release, she was out of bed, feeling better. Within 3 days, she was back in the office.
Wow.
So the infection she was having in her urinary kidney was inflammation.
Mm.
And the inflammation, we were doing the herbs and the garlic. We were doing everything we knew. Wasn't doing it. But once she connected what was causing her to be angry and mad and creating an inflammatory response in her body, it cleared up.
She created chronic stress too.
Exactly. So I love Louise Hay's books. You can heal your life. I tell people all the time, get the book, get the workbook, work through your emotional issues from your childhood and ditch it, because a lot of things, whether we realize it or not, are connected to, the mental, emotional things in life. She overcame cancer herself, and it showed up in her female organs because she had been abused. She had been carrying a lot of anger, because she had been abused as a young lady, basically raped and abused and misused. And she had anger issues. And once she was in bed dying and having to deal with it, she was able to realize that she was holding all this anger and bitterness, from being abused. And once she was able to release that and do the work, she was well. Cancer went away. Now, is that going to work in every single case? But yes and no. I always just tell people she was doing the nutritional protocols in addition to that. So when you put the spirit, mind, body together, it's explosive. It really is. You start really start healing. So again, it's ancient practices matching up with modern technology, and they can work together. And that's kind of like we talked about this earlier. I don't know if it was on the recording, but we were talking about how things right now, to me, there's a clash, and there always has been a clash between religion, science, medicine, philosophy. But now we're starting to see the culmination of the unity of those things together. And we're discovering through quantum physics and everything, we're all unified together in this universe. Mm-hmm. And when we all start understanding that, we realize if we can put away the dogma, we can actually unify in all this and come to a thing. Even if we have to have little differences of opinions here or there, that's okay. You've got to learn that I'm not going to, if you agree 100% with somebody else, or in an organization where you're agreeing 100% with a group of people, you're in a cult.
That's true.
It is. And so I always tell people, I am that I am, and that's subject to change from day to day, hour to hour.
That's so powerful.
I like that. I like that because I do the same thing. I am what I am, no more than I am. I am that I am. And I agree with you because the work I was doing with Patty set in with me on a session with Joe Reyna about past issues that happened to him and helping him realize what reasons why he was having back pain or why he was having side pain or he felt like he was having a heart attack. It was actually past things that was happening that had happened that he kept replaying. So the body holds on to that. The mind might move forward, but if you're not taking the body with the mind, you have that rubber band effect. You keep going forward, you come back. You forward.
It's a good analogy. Good analogy.
Well, it's to understand if we can do our like you said, mind, body, spirit. But if you got the mind and the spirit and the body not lined up with everything else,
everything's out of whack.
You keep having that. Yeah, you don't have that. Right.
Yeah, I'm not a Scientologist by any means, but I studied Scientology because there are some legitimate things in Scientology. I don't ascribe to any religion. I am that I am. Consider myself a spiritual person. Believe in the teachings of Jesus as how I understand them from the Aramaic, not the Greek or English. It's a big difference between the two. as far as that goes. But Ron Hubbard, respectfully, he used to call those things engrams. And engrams are like you use the rubber band thing, how things just keep happening over and over. He says like a cassette tape or a tape that just keeps wrapping around.
Mm.
And so maybe something happened to you as a child, as a teenager. And I had a lot of those things. That's part of my shoulder issues. I had a lot of issues with my mom.
Mm.
And I was letting those issues just keep rolling around in me. And I was probably bitter, or I don't know. I was just damaged from it all. Let's just, whatever you want to call it, the words, I was.
It's called trauma.
And so then it would, Jody, my wife, she would notice, a lot of times when she was talking to me, I'd automatically go into a defense because she was triggering something in me that my mom calls me to have that trigger reaction to.
Yeah.
So that's part of my shoulder issues was able to overcome that. And I had to really do some work with me and my mom. She had already passed away at that point. But I had to do some real mental work, spiritual work with her, forgiving her and putting things into perspective for all that to release off of. Because if not, you don't even realize it sometimes. You're reacting to someone because of something that happened to you in the past. And I'm already a D personality in the sense of I'm a very person that doesn't like to be told what to do. You can ask me to do something, it'll go a lot further. But if you're trying to tell me something to do, I'm automatically going to push back on it. Yep. And if you know anything, I'm a certified human behavior consultant. And Ds they like to be leaders. They don't like to be told what to do. So you have to know how to handle people and their personality. Mm-hmm. The most beautiful thing that ever happened for me is understanding personalities and how to deal with them. And it transformed my life in the ministry, our family life, learning that people are wired differently. So you have to approach people the way they're wired, But for me, if you start telling me, stuff like that. So in my other relationships, because of my coping mechanisms, the way I reacted to my mom, that would bleed over into other parts of my life. Mm. And then it starts affecting your health. Mm-hmm. Not a good thing. So you better deal with those things. So I call them engrams, just borrowing a term from Scientology, so I'm not telling you to go become a Scientologist by any means. If you want to study it like I did, I study everything I can get my hands on, from every world religion, from world philosophy to science, politics, history. I figured, you might as well be open and study and learn what you can from everybody.
Absolutely.
And it's like the old saying, and eat the meat and spit out the bones. What works for you?
Yeah. What makes you feel good?
Take what you get from it and move. Now, in the sessions I do with people of, like you said, forgiving, we do that. But then I take it a little deeper. I go in and we find the hidden parts, because that hidden part of that deep rooted into that parts of those body parts, because you can, some people are like, oh, I can help people in 6 weeks. I'm like, okay, but some of this is a really deep part, right? So when we do our session and Patty watched me, I took him a little bit deeper and I said, let's ask for the hidden stuff to come out. And boy, when we did that, it brought a whole nother release.
Oh, and people can start crying, they can start laughing, they can, all kinds of weird stuff happens when I call it reaching down and grabbing the root. Because a lot of counselors, doctors, practitioners are always dealing with the symptoms.
Yeah.
And I used to do a lot of marriage counseling, and they were always coming in with all the issues, and then I want to reach down and say, let's grab the root.
Yeah.
What? And then when you grab the root, everybody starts squealing then, because then you realize it's not because they don't take out the trash or they squeeze the toothpaste from the middle. You just let a lot of little bitty things add up. And then the last one created the explosion. And now you want me to deal with this? No, we got to go down and grab that root and get to the root problem of everything, which is why the spirit, the mind, the body, everything.
And it gives freedom. It gives release. It's a great feeling when you're like, oh my God, it was just that, Some people say, stop carrying those luggages, the chairs behind you all your life. Let them go.
And people don't realize how much they do carry crap around in their backpack. I did that when I had issues with my mom, and I carried that around in my backpack, and it caused me to have some forms of anger and bitterness and blah 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 blah. But I had to quit. Again, it's called, I call it beating the drum. Whatever you're talking about is you creating the vibration in your body with it, which becomes who you are and what you are. And the only way you change the vibration of what's going on is change the vibration. So you got to start beating the drum to a different vibration. So with me, I had to, like with the accident, I had to quit talking about blah, 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 blah. This is my story. I changed my story. I changed my story with my mom, and then you get healed from it, because now my vibration is creating the vibration I want to have. And of course they said, well, how do you know you're in the right vibration? When you're love, joy, peace, goodness, satisfaction, all of these, the feel good things. Well, you're just talking about being emotional. Like, yes. Yes. People say, well, you're just being emotional. God's not emotional. I was like, what do you mean God's not emotional? What is love and joy and peace and goodness and prosperity and abundance? It's all about joy. I said, but when you start spiraling down, you start getting depressed, you start getting bitter, you start getting angry. Now you're spiraling down, and now you're starting to be mean and nasty, treat other people the wrong way, be judgmental. And then, but you got to raise that vibration, by breaking those cycles down here. And that's why I always like the analogy with Jesus. When you're dealing with other people, and this is the revelation that I have, is that, and again, I study things from the Aramaic, which is totally different from Greek mindset, English mindset. But when Jesus hung on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because if they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. When people are unhappy, sad, bitter, angry, judgmental, they get angry, they're lashing out, they're looking for love in all the wrong places, they can't find it, and they lash out against each other, themselves, they can commit suicide because they're unhappy. If they're in their right mind, they wouldn't be down here. And so you've got to help people to raise that vibrational levels to find out things that can increase their love and their joy and their peace and their happiness. And then all of a sudden health and vitality, restoration occurs in that process, which is why, again, Jesus, if you go even study the exorcisms, whatever you want to believe, about exorcisms, we're not getting into that. But Jesus, if you go back and read, he says, after the exorcism, it says the man was returned to his right mind.
Wow.
His right mind, because the mind was so screwed up. And that's what's wrong with people today. Their minds are so conflicted. They're angry, so they're looking for love in all the wrong places, and then they start to create havoc for themselves and others.
Well, look at the programs that they're feeding. Come on, we're going to go on that. We can go on, we can do our next show also about, look at the programs. Look at the boys. They're being fed war and
the games they play, they're killing people, but the thing, let me finish with this, because I'm going to need to go here. The word sin, we're talking about, and this falls all in line with what we're saying. Sin for a lot of Christian people is about do this, don't do this. If you do this or not doing this, you should be doing this, but I'm not doing it. Sins of commission, omission, all that stuff. Adultery, blah, 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 blah.
Blasphemy.
Whatever it is, and they call that sin. That's not what sin is. In the Greek, harmatia, when I was the Greek scholar and preaching the Bible from the Greek, it meant, you're missing the standard. It's like the bow and arrow, you hit it, but you're not hitting the mark. So in a lot of Christianity and religious people is, well, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not doing what you should do, and you're doing what you shouldn't do. Things you should be doing, you're not doing. There's Romans 7. And, Paul says, I want to do this, but I don't do this. The things I want to do, I don't do, blah, 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 blah. But thanks be to God who gives me the victory through Jesus, the anointing. It's the anointing. That's another subject as far as that goes. But ultimately, you go back to the Aramaic, and it means missing the point. People do these things not because they're no good, dirty, rotten, no good scumbag sinners who don't want to obey God. It's that they're struggling because they're not in the right mind. They're looking for love in all the wrong places. They're unhappy. They're missing the point of life. And when you miss the point of life, you'll spiral down. You no longer have purpose or dreams or desires. You don't understand what's best for you, so you go down, which all kinds of things happen down here, which creates everything from people committing suicide to murder. So it's all about being in the right mindset, which is why even Paul, when he talked about that struggle, he says, but thanks be to God who gives me the victory through the anointing, which is why he said in chapter 12, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You have to reprogram the mind. And that's why you have to be careful. The mind plays tricks on us. It's the knowledge of good and evil. And Christians and Jews, they hang on to this old tree. Do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. You should be doing this. And if you're not believing this and doing that, it's all based on those things. And that's what Jesus tried to set us free from, was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It keeps you in a turmoil, conflicted. Should I do this? Should I not? And it's that rubber band, everything, and you're always struggling. Should I do this? And, oh, man, I messed up today, and I didn't pray like I should. I went out here and got drunk. I did something. I slipped up and committed adultery or whatever it is. And then it's like, oh, no, I'm no good. I'm repentant. Maybe I'm not saved. And that's just the wrong approach, because Jesus, it's just what's so liberating about the true teachings of Jesus. He came to set us free from that tree, but people just want to keep chewing on it and eating on it. And I'm like, just set me free. And they say, well, Dr. Stan, you're getting people a license to sin. I said, no, I'm not. Here's what Jesus taught. Love your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So you got to be able to love yourself in a non-egotistical way, and love that you are created and wonderfully made. And he says, oh, and one more thing, love even as I have loved you. And by this, the world will know that you are my disciples by the love that you have for one another. Not if you've got your theology straight, not if you're wearing the right clothes, saying the right things, going to the right church, going to the right assembly, got the right theological statement. That's all peripheral theological junk as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't get you anywhere but in the tree that creates this crazy dynamic. And so if you live your life out of love, would you hurt anyone, harm anyone, kill them, steal from them? Would you commit adultery with someone's wife? You wouldn't do anything to violate anybody else's rights and respect other people's rights. And if you do everything out of love, you can do no harm. End of story, close the book. That's the whole message of Christ. And men have added to that, which is not good. But it's all about the love factor for sure.
So we're going to close here. So Dr. Stan has talked about today the way the patches have assisted him and made his life and changed his life and other people in his life. And we just didn't hit on that. We hit on topics of how you should treat your body, love your body. And we start with that heart source of bringing that source in. And the one thing about the patches is the heart source, bringing that heart source in and sharing that love with each other, because that love brings a whole different world to all of us, and understanding like you said, stop beating on yourself, because I have a nice whip over here that I teach people. If you really want it, I'll give it to you, but it's not there for you. That's not what we're here for. We're here to live and enjoy our life and expand into a whole different type of living. And like you said, let that old book go. And it was funny because when he was talking about beating the new drum, I was out the other day cleaning out my horse tank for my stallion. And I turned it over and I started beating on it to beat the ice off of it. And that's exactly what I heard. I got goosebumps right now. Is beating a whole different drum. That's when I was beating on it, I heard a beat of a new drum. And that's what he's talking about, is understanding to come forth and beat that new drum. And I got goosebumps all over me. Is to understand that the Creator has created something different for you, and they don't want you to live in this old modality of programming and understanding that it shouldn't be here anymore. We have a different way, a different understanding. And I appreciate Dr. Stan. I appreciate your time, because, I mean, it's been fun hanging out with you.
We enjoyed it. We were all over the place, but I had fun.
Okay.
I hope it was helpful to someone.
We have so much more to talk about. Please consider coming back to see us.
Oh, absolutely. I'm any kind of topic you want, we'll tear into it.
Sounds good. You have a great
you.
rest of the day, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.